Okay, so official. Welcome to class number 4 of Mindfulness and Emotional Intelligence. Um, Welcome. It's good to see everybody here this evening. Um, so let's see. We have been working thus far with emotions. We've been working thus far with looking at the sensory experience of emotions. Emotions are something that I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught about them growing up. Um, in my particular environment, on my mother's side, it was just emotions is something that occurs and it's very overwhelming, and there's a lot of shame in them, and it's something that should be hidden. There's definitely um, that rigid Scottish environment of children should be seen, not heard. If a child is having an emotion, immediately they need to be whisked away, very far away from adults' experience. On my father's side, there's definitely, the standard normative, the only acceptable emotions for men to show is anger and potentially excitement. I think that all of us have had probably very incomplete and rather gunked up um, lessons about what emotions are. So we go through life and we have this experience of, well, I have these thoughts and I have these circumstances and it's creating sensations in the body. And now I'm jumping into the past and recalling all sorts of other experiences that align with what I'm feeling, that then's creating potential hypothetical future scenarios. And it can be very overwhelming. It can be we can very much get lost in the maelstrom there. So part of what we've been doing in this course thus far is really trying to just kind of slow down and look at this experience. So a lot of the focus thus far has been, well, can we just allow ourselves to feel? Um, a lot of us don't, pure and simple. A lot of us, an emotion comes up and it's like, all right, let's sweep that under the rug, and then it just kind of builds and builds until it cracks, and then something fumes out. So we go through these experiences of trying to suppress the emotion and seek safety in climbing up into our cognitive structures and going into thought until that doesn't work anymore, and then the emotions kind of pop up when we get overwhelmed. That seems to be a very, very common reporting. So a lot of the focus that we've been doing thus far has been, um, good, I'm seeing some agreement there. A lot of the focus thus far has been, can we just kind of get into the body and feel what's been taking place? In the first class, I was kind of doing this comparison with um, Pierre Genet's kind of 3 stages or modes of working with trauma. The first one correlating with safety. How is it that the person can feel safe and be able to, maybe they've been going through having a lifetime of having one foot on the gas pedal, one foot on the brake, and the nervous system is quite overwhelmed. How is it that we can allow ourselves to have a sense of safety? And I was correlating that with the Buddhist practice of shamatha, where it's cultivating a calm abiding and being able to work with breath, work with present time awareness in a way where we are easing that sense of urgency, so that the inhabiting the body becomes an actual um, safe, well, I guess the phrase is, we're cultivating a safe abiding within the body. And then the second principle, looking at, Janae's principle is looking at the investigation and processing. It's just like, okay, once the individual has experienced enough safety and their nervous system is chilled out a bit, well, let's start to explore. What's the challenging experience here that needs to be processed? And then I was correlating that with the Buddhist practices of Vipassana. Which is, all right, how's it that we can really explore into our sensory experience? How is it that we can step back and allow our sensory experience to unfold while observing it and meeting it with this equanimity, this allowing, um, this non-intervening, as well as non-judgment, non-suppression, cultivating a sense of equanimity, just meeting it with love, so to speak. And there's something that helps really process our experience. Things that we've been shoving down for so long, to just allow them to come up and be met, not just with dry observation, but with that equanimity and kindness, can potentially allow some things to become resolved. Oftentimes, uh, um, for many years, I worked in the drug and alcohol recovery um, work, and I would often say to individuals when they're newer and just joining in, I would say, well, nobody comes to a place like this because of a smiling problem. Yeah. A smile is something that comes into being. We allow it. We don't try to suppress it. We just give it full permission for it to flourish as long as it wants. And then when the smile wants to fade, it fades, and it's non-problematic. So we're not trying to suppress or get in the way of the arising of the smile. We're not kind of overwhelmed by the flourishing of the smile. And as the smile passes away, we don't feel that we're now going to be bereft of joy for the duration of our life. It's something that's effortless. It's something that is natural. It has, well, yeah, that fluid and natural expression of nature. Comes into being, passes away from being. Why is it that we can't do that with anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness, disgust, shame, and so on down the line? These are the challenging. These are the challenging ones that we often don't want to confront, or well, once they do come up, it's like, show's over, or game's over, day's ruined, or what have you. So a lot of that, again, going back to the Janae's principle, we were looking at kind of the safety, how that correlates with the shamatha, the processing, and how that goes with the vipassana work. So we're tapping into, if we can kind of tap into the body and allow some of these more difficult, challenging emotions to come up, we can retrain ourselves to step back and allow some of these unpleasant emotions to arise and pass away. Similarly, for cultivating some positive affect tolerance, can we allow the joy to come up? Can we allow the hope to come up? Can we allow the humor, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity? Can we allow those experiences to also arise without squashing them because of anxiety, or squashing them because of there's some lifelong held belief that I don't deserve it, or happiness is something that I earn, or whatever lesson it is that you have that might have truncated your capacity for being able to um, express, feel, and derive contentment from some of the pleasant emotions. Yeah? So we're looking at that piece too. And then finally, we'll get to that third part when we get towards the end of the the series. So I just kind of want to focus a little bit on that, leaning more into the kind of the Vipassana side today. So let me turn my clock on, because I can do this all day. All right, so let's get into a little bit of a review. Let's make sure I got the chats on. Okay. Forgive me as I kind of move some things about. All right. Jumping on in. Nope, this one right here. We got it. Okay, all the way from the beginning. Here we are. Okay, deconstructing negative ego states. A little bit of a review from last week, where we were looking at, we're looking at a particular map, related to, Vipassana practice, insight practice. Yeah. So again, special thanks to Michael Taft, deconstructingyourself.org, for coming up with this 4 stages of working with Vipassana. So I'm just going to do a brief overview. If anybody wants to go back and review it, I'll put up the link to YouTube, and you can check that out. But here we have this experience, and we're trying to meditate. And so the first level here is the conceptual level. Well, am I actually working with the breath, or am I kind of thinking about the breath? Yeah. In particular, working with the emotions here, I'm just kind of thinking about emotions. I'm thinking about the experience. I'm thinking about the he said, she said, this is what's going on in the office. This is what's going on at home. I don't like this. Oh, I do like that. We're thinking about the experience. Maybe we're not really feeling what's going on, but as I was saying before, that habit of climbing into and living within our cognitive structures. So this is kind of where we live. This is our life story. We live in our heads, and we're dealing with our perceptions and ideas of what's occurring. Yeah. So part of what we're trying to do within this focus, part of what we're trying to do within this training here, come into our sensory experience. Yeah. So this is this next level, actually getting into the feel-in experience. So as I was saying, can we allow our attention to just rest in the body and recognize what's going on? Now, I like to work with this acronym CLEAR sometimes. CLEAR, meaning contact, label, explore, accept, and relinquish. So contact, moment by moment. What's my primary sensation? And in this case, what's the primary emotion that I'm experiencing? Can I label it? Can I give it a word? Is it joy? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it, I'm just not sure. Is it humor? Is it, can't quite tell what it is, but feels unpleasant? Just give it a label. So as we're contacting it, we can discern what it is. Now we have a relationship with it. Can we explore it? Where does it arise in the body? How does it show up? Is it a local sensation? Is it global? Is it full body? How does it want to move? How does it want to stay stable? Explore the qualities that it exhibits. All the while, can we accept it? So we're not just dry observation, just saying, yeah, that's it. That thing is just there. It's doing its thing. Can we contact it, and in that relationship, bring this loving acceptance to it? So I've said before, or I pro-offer, just in a way that, let's say, the awareness that I have is contacting and holding this kind of localized anxiety I'm feeling in the pit of my throat here. Yeah. Well, the metaphor of, the mother holding the baby. The baby might be having its tantrum, or, it's colicky, it's suffering in some way. The baby's holding the suffering. Ideally, the mother's in a place where she's grounded, and she's resourced, and she's able to attune to the baby and offer some soothing. Yeah? So just in that way, we might contact a sensation, but can the awareness hold that sensation in a way where there's this loving, accepting presence to it? Yeah? That's a very key thing there. And then relinquish. That means, we contact it for a while, but we don't get caught up. We don't get overwhelmed with craving for some other experience or aversion to the experience we're having. Can we just have that equanimity with it, and then kind of let go? Let it do its thing, non-grasping. If it wants to pass away from being, move away. There's a continuous letting go that we need to do in order to enter afresh into the next moment. So this is getting into the sensory experience. Yeah? And then as we're able to just kind of be fresh and anew in each moment, and in this theme of working with emotions in the body, we can notice, oh, well, it's here. Now it's here. It's kind of this local sensation. As I'm tracking it, it's kind of getting more global. I'm experiencing more throughout the body. Yeah. So it can kind of be doing this potential fluidity or flow. So flow may begin to show itself. Yeah. And this is a good sign. So there's ways that we can work with flow within our sensory experience. But there's something good about that in the context of the work that we're doing here. Tends to suggest a processing is taking place. Yeah? Again, that sense of we're allowing. the smile to come into being and pass away from being. So kind of on that temporal, graph, that's the bell curve, comes into being, passes away from being. But, we're working with sensations in the three-dimensional space. So that impermanence begins to show itself in terms of fluidity. So any rate of change. But then ultimately, a sense of awareness. Maybe as this flow happens, we start to move from this place of, I am this emotion, I am this view, to into the sensory experience of, oh, okay, this is the emotion that's coming up in the body. Oh, okay, here's a thought that goes along with it. Right, here's another thought that goes along with it. Oh, I'm just seeing this activity. That sense of self is no longer tethered to, bound to the view of the emotion and the mood that's taking place. I'm stepping back and seeing this activity. And the more that I'm able to see this activity rise and fall, well, it can become kind of boring. We can start to turn the camera around 180 degrees. Well, what is this faculty of awareness that is perceiving this? This faculty of awareness here, this is something that is somewhat beyond the capacity for dukkha. It is beyond the experiencing of suffering. And we can begin to rest in awareness, so to speak. So I just wanted to do a quick overview of this kind of 4-stage process map, per se, of working with the Vipassana practice. So reviewing it, because we're going to be kind of referencing that a bit today. So today, this is what I'd like to work with a little bit. How is it that we can change our stories, beginning anew? Yeah. How is it that we can begin to have a different experience of ourselves, different experience of life? We have a tendency to, we're stuck within our skins. We're stuck within this body. We're stuck within our thoughts. We're stuck within our memories. And we tend to have these stories that we live with. Yeah. So whether it's I'm sitting on the therapist's couch and here I am again, I'm telling the story. I'm so sick and tired of telling this freaking story again, on that level, or just the subtle little ways that they show up of, oh yeah, of course this is going to happen. Oh, of course it's going to be like that. Yeah. Where we have this predetermined experience of self or predetermined experience of world. We live stuck within particular stories that we have. So part of, just want to make sure that's up. Part of this is, really recognizing that this is it. This is where we live. Yeah. So oftentimes I like to reference the default mode network. So people who've studied with me for a while, have heard me talk about this quite a bit. So, just little regions within the brain that tend to work in concert together when we're not particularly engaged in our environment, not particularly concentrated on something, and it has the features where we're constantly ruminating over certain experiences of the past that then create likelihoods of potential future scenarios. So the 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the future, quite literally. So that's kind of where we live, the default mode. It's a horrible place to live. We're not here. We're missing our experience as we're just having these negative experiences that don't exist anymore, so to speak. And there tends to be a negative bias within it also, because within the ruminations of the past, there tends to be the hedonic tones of remorse and regret. My personal favorite, cringe. And then, of course, as we're projecting to the future, what's with that? The anxiety that comes with that. I'm forgetting the term, but the future-based anxiety that arises. So we have this anxiety, depression that can then just automatically come out of living in this default mode network. So the thing is, we're just not aware of it because we're on autopilot mode. But what we might be aware of is just these moments where these stories pop up, where it's just like, oh yeah, there, of course that's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. Oh yeah, I'm going to go to do this thing. I know how that's going to turn out. Yeah, so how is it that we can rewrite some of our stories that we live under? I think this is something that is worthwhile in order to kind of give ourselves a freshness and newness in life. Especially, probably a lot of us might be experiencing that a little bit more now. If a lot of us have been engaged in a sustained sheltering in place, staying at home, having a reduced, contracted life compared to last year, um, there might be all the more of a feeling of caginess, cabin fever, repetition of life, where maybe some of our kind of repetitive stories might be coming out a little bit more. So this is something that I'd like to look at a little bit today. Um, so to wax a little Buddhist here, view, right view. Yeah? So this is one of the path factors of the Eightfold Path. So there's this idea of right versus wrong, and I don't want to. Sometimes when I talk about it in that languaging, because that's how it's languaged in the early suttas: right view, wrong view, right concentration, wrong concentration, and it's not trying to put in some moral legalistic value on something. Yeah, I've heard other teachers kind of translate it variously to avoid saying right or wrong, just so people don't feel judged. But let's look at it this way. If I'm in this room and the door is right there and I want to leave, if I go in that direction, is that the right way? No, it's the wrong way. You want to leave, that's the door. That's the right way. You know? So the teachings come from an agrarian society. So there's a lot of simple metaphors. There's a path, the Eightfold Path, so I'm at point A and I want to traverse the path to point B. Am I going in the right direction? That's the wrong direction. This is the right direction. So when I say right and wrong, it's not I'm judging you, heaven, hell, what have you. It's go back to this. Is this putting me in the right direction on the path? Yeah. So maybe we could talk about in that context, right direction of view versus the wrong direction of view. Yeah. So to contrast the two, view. View meaning the experience of, how shall we say, self and world. Yeah. There's the view that I have. I mean, I'm unconscious. I'm not taking in any sensory experience. Bing, I'm conscious. I'm awake. I'm looking. Then, of course, what happens? There's this perception. I'm looking at this light. My brain goes to the Rolodex. Oh, that's a lamp. Came to me through Amazon quite some weeks ago. It's a kind of okay light, so I'm not relearning my experience. Yeah? And it gives sense of the self of world, a sense of self. So view is always occurring. So what is wrong view? Wrong view points to being caught in this default mode network and the potential suffering that goes on within it. Yeah, the wrong view is having this automatic autopilot identification with every thought, idea, impulse, reactive habit, reactive pattern that comes up. Wrong view is our identifying with our dukkha. Yeah. So, forgive me, but I like to use the Pali terms because, I like to keep it within the context of the system. I like to work with a lot of the early Buddhist Theravada framework. So dukkha, sometimes translated as suffering, but the way that I feel it's more relatable is that gap between how things are and how I'd like them to be. I prefer it to be like this, but it's actually like that. Ugh, how am I dealing with that? Am I denying? Am I defending? Am I deflecting? Am I going unconscious? Am I absolutely just hating this experience? Am I just kind of flaking out and fantasizing about what it is that I want things to be? Yeah. So that all different forms and expressions of dukkha that can happen here because I want things to be different. So that dukkha, that discontent, it's the automatically identifying with that. Yeah. So a lot of us being stuck in the default mode network and our ruminations and our ideas, the past and the future, it ain't true, it ain't happening. But there's a lot of the remorse and anxiety, and there's a lot of like, I know how this is going to be. That just isn't true, but we're identifying with it moment by moment. So that's the wrong view that the Dharma talks about. So the right view talks about, well, can we see our experience through the lens of the Four Noble Truths? Okay, so a lot of early Buddhist thought, it's kind of a lot of these go-to menus. Click on this, it's a drop-down menu. You click on that, it's another drop-down menu. So that's kind of the logic structure of how a lot of early Buddhist thought is. So um, looking at things through the lens of the Four Noble Truths, what does that mean? Let's go there. Let's move this around. Let's move that around. Okay, here we go. So right view, looking at spirits through the lens of the Four Noble Truths. So dukkha, the gap between how I want things to be versus how they are. Four Noble Truths. We should know the truth of dukkha. Yeah, dukkha arya satcha. Noble truth of dukkha. It happens. At any given moment, there is some kind of fly in the ointment that makes us feel that this is not our peak perfect moment. There's some imperfection that we're experiencing right now, or that we sense right now. So we need to be aware of that, because there's this subtle thing that might be influencing our perception and driving our behavior, that dukkha. Can we be aware of that? Yeah. Now then we need to know the second noble truth, dukkha samudaya arya satcha. Know the truth of origin of suffering. Yeah? Where is this? If I'm not feeling so good, how does it originate? Can I discern the sensory experience that's occurring? So this is relating back to, rather than being in this chaos of emotion, can I right now just be with, this is anger. I'm feeling those right here. That does not feel good, but I'm able to have that tolerance and resiliency to just be able to rest my attention in the somatic expression of the emotion, so to speak. Yeah. So going back to the map, we're going from the conceptual level into the sensory experience. Okay, I can just rest within that. Oh, I'm seeing how this moment it's coming up again. Seeing how this moment is coming up again. Maybe I'm seeing, oh, there's this thought, there's that splash creating this ripple in the body. Now that's creating another thought. Now I'm not necessarily fueling it, but I can see how this particular discontent is arising. So in the way that I'm cultivating this awareness, third noble truth, cessation, nirodha, ceasing. I'm no longer creating the conditions, I'm ceasing the fuel. So just part of when we get into a negative mood state, it's just like the mind is churning, which is churning more emotion, which is battery power for more thoughts, which is battery power for more emotions. And we're in this kind of infinity knot of suffering. So if we can step back and just see, oh, okay, yeah, that's some dukkha arising in my thinking. Oh, this is dukkha arising in the body, and I'm seeing for what it is. I'm no longer creating the conditions for fueling it. And I'm creating the conditions where, oh, now that thing can pass away. Nirodha, cessation. So the fourth noble truth is the truth of the path, the Eightfold Path, which, without going there fully tonight, it's about how so that we can have a dedicated practice in all the expressions in our life, within our action, speech, livelihood, mindfulness, concentration, so on down the line. So this is what the Dharma asks us to do in terms of cultivating right view. So here we have it. How to say that again in English? Changing our stories. Part of it is recognizing we spend a lot of time lost in the default mode network. Early Buddhism says, hey, that's wrong view, because it's just creating the conditions for generating suffering. Let's work into right view, which is where we can really open up turn the camera 180 degrees around and look at what is this mind-body experience that is generating these sensations that we might be defending against. Yeah? So that map of the conceptual into the sensory flow and awareness. So it's asking us to really get into the sensory experience. So again, we're working with the Vipassana side of practice today. Yeah. Vipassana meaning to see clearly or to see through. You know, so if a lot of the times that we're just lost in our lost in our thoughts, our ideas, our perceptions, past, future, we're not really seeing things clearly. You know, we're seeing kind of a lot of hiccuping and regurgitating of our experience, creating hypothetical other experiences that are often based around a lot of our discontent. So the vipassana is to see that clearly, clearly see what's happening. But also the other connotation of clear meaning transparent. I can see through that. Yeah, just like Dorothy seeing through the big bad mean Oz, pay no attention to that man behind the green curtain. You know, that's the experience of, oh, I'm seeing through this. Oz is not scary. The illusion is gone. I'm seeing clearly what's going on. There's some dude just pulling levers and pressing buttons. Yeah, so that's the Vipassana metaphor. Yeah. So how is it that we can just kind of be within our experience? And this is the challenge, because we're opening up to the mind body experience, and oftentimes, I mean, show of hands, who struggles in meditation of just getting lost in thought? Yeah. This is not the invitation to get lost in thought, but we're giving permission for the mind to do its thing. So this is the metaphor that I like to pose here. There are two types of individuals that go to the movie theater, back in the days when people could attend movie theaters. So, of course, there's number one, the moviegoer. What do? They sit down with the popcorn. They just lose themselves in the story. They're enthralled with the story. They're identified, having the cathartic experience of the story that's being projected. Yeah, so that's the person type, category number one, who goes to the movie theater. The second type is the projectionist. They're the person that just sits back in the high room behind everybody. They probably saw the movie a few hundred times. They're not interested in it anymore. Back in the days, I guess before things were all digital and it was all like film stock, they're sitting there, they're watching the film, but they're not engaged in the story. They're looking for the little cues, the little dots that might come up that gives them the clue to, oh, I have to take this reel down, put this reel up and do this. You know, they're aware of the environment. They're aware of the people down there. They're aware of the activity going on the screen, but they're not getting engrossed in it. They're just noticing the sensory experience, and they're noticing the activity and just looking for cues. Yeah. So we're going to be doing some insight practice, yeah, building upon what we've been working thus far of so much of the emotive experience in the body, but now we're going to open up to the mind. But try not to be the moviegoer. You know, let's just step back and have this analogy of the role of the projectionist. Yeah. So this is what I like to do. We're still working with the emotions. So again, just for a review, since I don't think we did the official review last week. Again, when we're working, oops, that's not what I want to watch. Forgive me, folks. Pages, there we go. All right, can everybody see this? Okay, so again, noting feeling states, you know, so allowing your awareness to come into the body and just recognizing, discerning the various emotions, the unpleasant ones. We have the anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness, disgust, general feels negative, joy, love, humor, acceptance, hope, feel positive. I'm not sure, it's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly valid label. So contacting, labeling what's going on in the body. and allowing the emotions to rise and fall, do their thing. But we might have noticed sometimes the emotions come into being and they pass away from me. We go through the day and it's just like, oh, that made me angry. I stubbed my toe. Oh, that doesn't feel good. And it goes away. I look at that sunset. Oh, that's nice. And then it goes away. Yeah. So sometimes the emotions just naturally have this fluidity. Sometimes they're a little bit more pernicious. Yeah. Sometimes they don't want to go away. And here's something weird going on today with the Zooms. Here we go. Here we go. So sometimes the emotions, they persist, they proliferate. A mood might set in. Yeah. Sometimes, there's a wave of sadness, but then sometimes that sadness might begin to take root. Sometimes, we might not get this tinge of anxiety, but then sometimes it might take root and begin to colonize our experience. Sometimes there's just this somatic experience of emotion, but sometimes it can co-occur with a negative belief. Yeah. So this is starting to relate to our old stories we tell ourselves. So sometimes there's the emotion comes up, but then it comes up with the belief of, I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable. I am broken. A favorite of mine, I'm karmically screwed. It feels like the whole universe is like out against me completely. So this is when things kind of get a little tough, because we get the emotion that just kind of takes root, and then, plus the negative belief, and then we get this whole negative ego state. Yeah? So this is kind of like a more severe form of wrong view in the Buddhist sense, where we're really entrenched in and identified with our suffering. So, when we get into this negative ego state, we have a real negative belief about ourselves. I'm just screwed up. I'm broken. I'm wrong. It's my fault. What is the negative belief of the day for you today? Just reflect upon that. And then, of course, there's the correlating emotion or feeling state within the body. We get a very distorted view of self and world. It creates dysregulated emotions, and then we become susceptible to what? Oftentimes it'd be great if we have our toolbox, we have our community we can reach to, we can have loved ones that we can just get a hug or an embrace from, somebody that we can talk to that can, help us take in new corrective information. But a lot of times we don't. And then when we're dysregulated, we might reach to some more unskillful self-soothing mechanisms that might get us in trouble. So what is that? For some people, it's different flavors of impulse behavior. For some people, it might just be intensified rumination until we have some degree of breakdown. So again, wrong view. It's a rather subtle term, but it really talks about this. It talks about really how various levels of, discontent into just now suffering. So this is what we're going to be looking at a little bit today. I'd like to offer this up as a possible thing to examine. What I'd like to look at is kind of deconstructing some negative ego states. Yeah? So hopefully the vast majority of us will be reasonably and relatively balanced and okay. But let's just look. What's a negative pattern of yours? Yeah? So that can be a challenging situation in a relationship or work that's happening, or maybe it's a troubling pattern that you might have, a particular thing that might come up once a day or a couple times a week, or something that might make you feel like you're kind of tripping up in life a little bit. Asterisk, I'm not asking you to delve into your most horrific, traumatizing experience here. So let's just all agree we're taking that off the table. On the scale of 1 to 10 of intensity, let's go for the 0.05 to 3 range. Maybe something that's just like, it'd be great if I didn't do this. It'd be great if I didn't come home from work and be angry and then I kicked the dog. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Nobody here kicks the dog, hopefully. But, um, back in the day, when I had a 9 to 5 job, actually 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. job plus commuting hours on end through Los Angeles, there would be a pattern of mine where I would get in the car, sit in traffic, my energy would just drop. I would fall deeply into default mode network. I'd be ruminating about the day, and then all the stuff that I had to suppress because it's not appropriate for a corporate environment started to come up. Then I put the key in the door, I come home, hey, everybody. They all come at me with whatever they're experiencing, wife and children. And then it's just all of a sudden like I'm a water balloon. It pops. And then what comes up? All that gunk, So that was a pattern of mine that I was just aware of. The frustration, the anxiety, the whatever would come up and would discharge in various ways. I never kicked the dog. I only have cats. So that was something where it's just like, oh, this is a pattern. That's not cool. So it's just like, okay, I notice I'm going to the default mode now. Can I just be aware of the emotions? Can I resolve and be with the emotions as they're happening? As I'm entering into the home, I'm making a conscious effort to recognize, all right, keep work at work, and just can I attune to the individuals here and just recognize them for who they are, what they need, separate. So that was like a pattern that I specifically worked on for a bit. So yeah, maybe on that level, what's a pattern or something that comes up for you that maybe comes to mind? So this is part of it. Maybe we can do a little exercise right now before we get into the meditation. So allow yourself to close your eyes, if you will, and see that situation, see that pattern. What is it that you are doing that is kind of bringing, or what's happening to you that's bringing some discontent? So picture yourself in that scenario. So this is the seeing. So this is the internal seeing, that we're observing the images that are arising within the seeing space of the mind. So that this is the movie. This is the mind's eye is projecting an image upon the see space, this particular movie screen. Most people are report it's around the eyes, the forehead. And so you can see that. You're the director, editor, zoom in, zoom out, rewind, pan, whatever. And then what's the internal talk that goes with this? What is the auditory component that you hear in the hearing space? In between the ears there, where you hear the commentaries, where you hear the conversations. What is taking place there? There can be the hearing of the audio of the scenario, but there also might be your own self-referential talk. Maybe the negative belief is expressing itself there. I'm unlovable, I'm screwed up, I'm overwhelmed, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I'm broken, whatever comes up. So we have the seeing occurring in the see space, the hearing that occurs in the hear space, and partial awareness in the feeling space of the body. What's the emotions that come up along with this? And so allowing your awareness to just align with the regions of space in the body that are normally attuned to emotive experience. Moment by moment, what's present? Can you contact it and just let it flow? So maybe you have a scenario, maybe you don't. But this is the idea. Now then, we're not being the movie goer. We're not getting lost in the story here. Just like somebody is taking a toy boat to a pond, placing it on the water, and then pushing it off, we're setting up the scenario here. And then we're putting it in the water. Now we're getting into the meditation. We push the boat off and allow it to just drift wherever it is, and we just watch it. So if you're not already Allow yourself to really come to a comfortable upright position. And transition this right into the meditation. Allow yourself to straighten up and settle in. So, right now, let's focus on the feeling space that's happening moment by moment. What is the flavor of emotion? Can you label it? Contact it. Label it. Anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness, disgust. General feel negative. Joy, love, humor, compassion, appreciation, acceptance, peace. General feel positive, not sure. Moment by moment, just contact and label. Can you meet it with that sense of exploration? Where is it in the body? How is it that you're experiencing the sensation? All the while imbuing it with an acceptance and kindness. And moving on. So, this is the primary way that we're going to be working with just the overall emotive sensations in the body. Now, then, if you want to just work on that level, that's perfectly fine. But we could sum all that experience with just simply labeling feel. And as we set this up with contacting a scenario or an idea, a memory, we can invite that back in. So before we were seeing images in the see space, hearing internal talk and hear space, and examining the feelings that come up in feel space. So being that projector in the projectionist booth, just sitting back, just watching this activity. Whenever your awareness is primarily pulled into feel, just label feel. Just contact, feel through the emotion, explore, accept, and let go. Whenever you're primarily aware of the images that you see, just label see, contact, label see, explore how it arises, accept, and let go. Whenever you're primarily aware of any internal talk that you hear, just label it as hear. So as I'm engaging in the exercise, might sound something like this. Feel, see and feel. Hear, see and hear. Feel, and so on like that. We're not intentionally thinking about anything really. We're just allowing what comes up to come up. We're not steering the craft. We're not steering the boat. Just letting it drift. And we're stepping back, not necessarily engaging in the content, just noticing the activity. To see, hear, feel, sensory experience. It's okay if it's challenging. Creating new habits is a different way of stepping back from our experience. Just observing this flow of sensory activity, seeing, hearing, feeling. We're contacting, labeling, see, hear, and feel. Just exploring the rise and fall of each of these sensory events. But can it be met with that acceptance? Slow down your pacing here. Really stay a little bit longer with each facet of your sensory experience. As you're aware of it and observing it, can you imbue it with a kindness? Imbue it with an acceptance. Maybe if it's uncomfortable, can you imbue it with a compassion? Whenever it arises in feel space, can you open up, turn towards it, allow yourself to feel? If it feels a little bit much, you can always slow down on this whole labeling thing and just come to simple contact with breath, noticing the calming and balancing qualities of breath to take the edge off of the experience. You can begin to see the fluidity of this experience moment by moment. It's just the activity of see, hear, and feel, coming into being, passing away from being. Allow yourself to notice the flow, the impermanence of the experience. If you find that you're falling into the rabbit hole of thinking, just remember, wake up. It's all some expression of see, hear, and feel. Just allow yourself to just discern what's going on and how that may automatically bring you into the present moment. And return to embodying in the flow of noting, see, hear, and feel. And really lean into the acceptance, kindness piece. Whatever's taking place, can you meet it with that acceptance, equanimity? And as we're observing the rise and fall of see, hear, and feel, just noticing the gaps in between. From moment to moment, there may be no activity in see, hear, or feel. There's just a restfulness, maybe even just awareness. Can you just contact that simple experience of awareness, whatever that brightness, wakefulness that you experience, however that makes sense to you? Can you just contact that? We've been doing a lot of efforting. Let's just let go of all technique now. Let go of all labeling and such. Just contact that flavor of awareness. And just rest here for a minute. And sense of awareness can be either localized in your body, or that awareness can be rather spacious, extending out into the environment around you. However, it is for you that you experience that flavor of awareness, consciousness, just being awake. That's perfectly fine. Allowing all other activity to be in the background. Okay. At ease, everybody. Post bell practice, allowing yourself to receive the merits of what you've been generating, just with eyes open and engaging in conversation. So, this is the opportunity where I'd like to hear from you. What did you notice? What did you observe? What was salient for you in your meditation this evening? Or any questions you have about any of the material that we went over, feel free to just unmute yourself and manifest.
Okay, here's Carolyn. Oh, somebody else.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did two of us start talking at the same time?
I first heard you, Carolyn, so let's just say you.
Okay.
Or
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go with your, do you have any questions? I don't, I would like some thoughts from you about into what I'm leaning into, when I'm leaning into, and specifically the traumas that I've had that bring me to this place and addiction and other things has to do with serious physical things where the pain was really great. For instance, somewhat recently when I had chemo for very aggressive cancer and radiation and stuff, and I was so sick, and either pretty sick or really sick, and that was for actually a couple years. And the way that I could at the time figure to deal with it was just just to not experience the depth of that physical pain, and just to there was nothing. I just kind of disappeared and went unconscious and turned into went not, you know what I mean, and just turned into a little dot. I was somebody who was just tolerating this until it was over with. And a couple weeks ago, oddly, because of the chemo, my heart failed and I had to have heart surgery. And it's kicking up some of that old stuff. And so and plus there's a lot in the recovery of the heart that's difficult. And so I don't want to go through my whole life just going, no, I'm not going to experience any of this, but I don't know into what to lean. And tonight you said something which caught me, which was different, which was leaning into the acceptance of it. And it's like, oh, actually that I can do.
Mhm.
But am I supposed to be leaning into the pain, and what am I supposed to be leaning into?
I'd say lean into the acceptance piece, definitely. So, um, the challenge of doing a guided meditation is, one size does not fit all. Everybody has. There are some people out there that maybe their experiences, they're a little bit more alexithymic. Like they're like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I can't feel anything. There's not much happening here. And then on the other hand, there's individuals that might report there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of old pain that I'm carrying. So, the one direction or one suggestion is not going to fit both individuals. So part of it is part of what I was asking people to do is just be clear. What's the most prominent thing right now? What is it that you're feeling right now? And maybe can I ask you, is there an emotion that you're feeling right now, Carolyn, that might be present for you?
Right this moment, or when
Yeah,
we were in the meditation?
just right now. We could do a little experiment.
Okay. My head says I'm so grateful to be in this conversation with you,
Mhm.
and my stomach is saying we didn't like experiencing what we experienced during that meditation.
Okay. So what's stomach saying? It's angry and resentful, or what?
It's like we were at death's door and we don't want to have to think about that.
Okay. So that's kind of the conceptual stage. We're kind of giving voices and ideas. But if we were to get into it in the body, is that fear?
It's definitely more like terror.
Terror. Okay. So pretty intense terror. So at the other point in the meditation where I said lean into the acceptance piece, and you said I can do that. is there any part of you that can have some acceptance towards that's what's happening right now? That's what you're detecting in the stomach, is that terror? Is there some capacity for acceptance?
Yes, and especially when it's wrapped in, not wrapped, when it's the context of a compassionate acceptance.
Great. Okay. So there's acceptance and then there's the compassion too. So can that be, it's like two-handed practice. One hand, we're contacting what's present, which is the fear. And then the other hand, it's what we're bringing to it. And that's the compassionate acceptance. So that's what we're doing. So one hand, we're just contacting, this is what's true right now. Terror. It's not easy. Is there a capacity for compassionate acceptance? Okay, I'm bringing that too. Can you kind of be aware of both and just kind of
Yes,
sit with that, just be with that? So the
I can
leaning
do that.
into is lean into the compassion, lean into that. So again, that metaphor of the mother holding the crying baby. Can your awareness be imbued with this compassionate acceptance as it's holding this localized sensation of terror in the stomach? So sometimes you might be more
Mhm.
identified with the terror in the stomach. Sometimes you might be more identified with the compassionate um, acceptance. You just allow your awareness to just kind of explore and just be with that experience.
Mhm. Okay, thank you so much.
As you're doing that, what seems to take place is okay.
One more time, as I'm doing that, what?
Uh, as you're doing that, as you're kind of contacting the fear and bringing the compassionate experience, compassionate acceptance, does that shift or change your experience? What takes place for you?
Yes, most definitely. And it also talking about it with you, and also, I don't know why, but talking about it with you with a lot of witnesses
Hmm.
is also making a difference, a difference I'm appreciating.
Well, good,
Yeah.
good. So sometimes I like to explicitly ask people to engage in a practice of compassionate listening during these conversations, but I think there's something about the nature of your sharing here that's probably a lot of people are feeling compassion right now.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Anybody else care to share, ask a question, or reflect upon their meditation? Yeah, Nicole.
I'll take question for $200. Um, so when I was, I guess in my set, I was getting caught up in the he said, she said loop, if you will. And which made me reflect on kind of a question I had a little bit earlier, just about how to meet the challenges of getting caught up in somebody else's default network and becoming a part of somebody else's dukkha, like taking on that energy.
Hmm.
Um, without going into too much detail, just becoming ensnared and sort of somebody else's drama, so to speak, and taking on that energy as your own. I know that you can go through the, sensory response as you would, with anything, but it's just harder to navigate, I find. And I was wondering if you have any advice to impart on that degree.
Sure. Different levels of experience there. Just to talk about on that sensory level, um, the more that we can be with and meet, going on the theme of the compassionate acceptance, that compassionate equanimity, the more that we have access to that, and we're able to be with our own emotive responses. Then there's a way in which we're kind of processing, we're digesting them, and it becomes, once that begins to click, then it's like we can, well, whatever emotion comes up, it's perfectly okay because we can be with it and quantize it and just allow it to pass away to the next wave, and we just have that compassion equanimity until it passes away, and we are not identifying with it, and so we're just kind of processing. It's like this air filter. We're just kind of taking in the gunk and just kind of giving back out this equanimity. And I mean, kind of to wax a little Buddhist, um, eventually it's like, well, we're all empathic to whatever degree. Some of us a little bit more than others, but even the person that's the most densest out of touch with their emotions can walk in a room where somebody just had an argument and feel like, ooh, it feels yucky in here. So we all kind of pick up each other's stuff. The more that we're able to be very clear about our sensory experience and kind of digest, process, equanimize it, then, well, again, to wax Buddhist, if we're trying to process and work through our own suffering, then we're naturally aware of the suffering that's around us. And it arises inside of us. We sit next to somebody that's in pain, we can, co-experience it. That's the compassio, to feel the pain with. So if I'm feeling that other person's pain, it's okay too, because I'm able to kind of process that experience. In a way, that might be retroactively helping them. If there's, somehow I'm resonating with their nervous system, they might be able to resonate with mine, that I'm able to process it. So that might be, in a way, a subtle teaching for the other person. But also in a way that we're relating to the pain that arises within our sensory experience, where we're not getting pushed and pulled by it. So, if we're getting caught in somebody else's stuff, like we're feeling that other stuff, it's just like if we're sitting with just our own, can we just kind of feel it through? And in that way, I'm not picking up my own stuff. So if that other person shows up and I'm feeling their emotion, I'm feeling through and relinquishing, letting go of that too. And as they pass and as they leave, they're not generating it anymore. I'm not aware of it anymore. I'm not feeling it anymore. So there might be the problem with the rumination. If we're still thinking about it, then that's now I'm generating my own rumination by going over the story that might be in there. So then popping out of the sensory level, coming back up to the conceptual, maybe interpersonal level, maybe it's conversation about boundaries, maybe about what type of boundaries you might need to have with this individual if you're kind of getting enmeshed with them, this kind of codependent, painful thing, without knowing the nature of what's going on. Then maybe it's about you understanding a little bit better about what's okay and what's not okay in terms of your relationship with this individual. Maybe you might have to have a conversation with them, or maybe it's not about having a conversation with them, but just having a conversation with yourself about what you will or will not do. Okay, here comes that person again. You know what? I got something else to do. Maybe I should go down the other hallway. Yeah. Or maybe I'll sit and I'll talk with them, but I see there are traps that they want to hook me in, and I'm just not going to get hooked. And I'll take my exit. Or if it's somebody that you have a good balanced relationship with, but you can't help but take on their stuff, then it's about on that sensory level, really being able to become more adept at feeling through the emotion, so that you're not taking it on. And then, that ruminatory activity too, how to recognize when that particular theme comes up. So, like you hear me say often, know your patterns. If a particular pattern is you're ruminating about blank, what's the title you put? That's your label. You're going through the day, hey, I'm making a smoothie, get out the blender. Oh, now I'm lost in this thing again. Oh, that's what it is. I know what it is. It's blank, whatever label it is you give. That's the theme that's going on. And you kind of pull out of that activity, come into the body, kind of feel through whatever it's generated. Really lean into so in the clear, contact, label, explore, accept, relinquish. It's really getting into the accept and relinquish piece. How can we let go? What's the part of you that still reaches to pick it up again? Maybe you can explore what that letting go, relinquishing piece is. And how to, when you notice those moments of, oh, the emotion is going away, or the idea is going away, the thought is going away, there's that moment of, it's gone. And there's this clarity, and there's this particular joy of emptying out of that discontent. But then something comes up in consciousness that's like, you know what, I'm going to pick it up again for another round. What is that? Can you be aware of that process and get clearer about that subtle activity? D- Does any of this resonate with your experience? I'm sorry, I'm kind of assuming a whole bunch of things, Nicole.
Absolutely nothing. I don't even know. It's like you're talking a completely different language. Yes, yes. Thank you, Mike. That so on so many different levels, and it's really difficult to, I find myself trying to process emotions, in that moment with that person, and I have a hard enough time doing that on an individual level, when I'm triggered. So to do that in the company of somebody else is like just a whole different sort of thing. But as so many different strategies to deal with that, to kind of take a step back and set boundaries and just work with my own sensory experience. I think that's extremely helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so lots of tools. Maybe journal about it a little bit. So on all these different levels, just think about, really kind of deconstruct what is the pain in this experience, the interpersonal, the social agreement you have with them, on your own, what's the nature of the thinking, what's the nature of the feeling. When it does go, what's the nature of the part of you that wants to pick it back up. Just really get clear about all of those different activities and make some decisions and try to see if you can stick with them.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we're right on that cusp. We've got a couple minutes left. If somebody feels like if they go to bed tonight with a sense of discontent because there's something they needed to express that they didn't right now, this is your opportunity.
Not question statement. I felt like it was a little bit easier tonight for me to notice pain and then notice negative emotions just like as an emotion. Because it's hard sometimes, and like 2 times I was kind of holding on the pain, but just because it like constantly passes through. But yeah, I felt like for the most part I was letting it go through a little bit more.
Good. So you're letting the emotion go through, the physical pain go through, or both?
I would say the pain, because the emotion sometimes I'm just label it negative, and then when I label it negative, sometimes I kind of hang on it in a similar way to the pain.
Hang on, there's some grasping there.
Yeah, but sometimes if I label it like aversion or I'm trying to not do it, that's helpful. So I'm experimenting with it, but I really benefited from your lesson in the beginning.
Okay, good. And I'm glad it was easier. We were talking last time about how they kind of mush together the physical pain and the emotional pain. So sometimes it's about maybe slowing the experience down a bit, slowing down what we're noticing, staying with a facet of our experience a little bit longer so we can notice, oh, this is the physical pain. Oh, this is the emotion that might be generating. Oh, this is my reaction to it. And really starting to get a sense of this kind of proliferation event that happens. So can I ask what made it easier? Was it kind of the acceptance?
I think it was like I was trying to be a little more concentrated on it instead of letting it take over. Sometimes I stress that concentrating too much would make me too anxious, which is weird because I'm like hyperly focused.
If we try too hard to concentrate, there's like this striving tension that can create this anxiety, restlessness.
Yeah. So, but then I was just kind of leaning into that, like, well, it's okay if I do that. I'm just going to try to concentrate.
It's okay. Good. I'm glad that was working out for you better this week. All right. Keep at it for sure. And I think the theme for both or all three shares, that compassionate equanimity response, I think is just very salient for each of the three shares, in terms of kind of, being able to tolerate and abide the core unpleasant emotion, to be able to kind of maybe help with the relinquishing and the unhooking from, being emotively caught in another, and also being able to kind of cool down a little bit of the intensity of the physical pain so that there can be a little bit more discerning of what's going on and just kind of, getting a little spaciousness and breath within that. Great. Thank you, everybody. Okay, I'm going to do my spiel. Forgive me as I'm just kind of lining up windows and such. Okay. Sorry, what YouTube channel will this be uploaded to? That's an excellent question, Matthew. So you can check that out here. I have some stuff. Check out the YouTube channel. I will have that posted. I post the classes of this series on there. And also I have a daily morning meditation that I do as well over Zoom, just like this. So if you're comfortable doing this, you could be comfortable doing that. So that's Monday through Friday, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. Each day we go over a different theme: Metta Monday, Shamatha, Calming Tuesday, Vipassana Wednesday. Thursdays is meditating on emotions, so a lot of what we're doing this evening. And Friday is silent sit. So the link to that Zoom meeting is there. That's all by donation. Everybody here is invited to that. And speaking of donation, I'd like to put up a link to donate for Inside LA. So the Dana practice, is practicing generosity, practicing this interplay of our own patterns of holding on and withholding versus giving. It's an odd thing trying to practice the Dharma in the West. Back in Buddhist countries, there's this acknowledged, accepted symbiotic relationship of the as the monks do their alms rounds, the people would put food in their bowls and take care of the physical well-being of the monks, while the monks would chant, pray for, and give spiritual guidance, taking care of the spiritual needs of the people. So how is it that we can transplant that into kind of the Western capitalist money-making society? So I'd like to say these teachings are freely offered. The powers that be at Inside LA have come up with a number for the class that helps them, hopefully be able to balance out a lot of the revenue that's been lost during these COVID times. So follow that link to donate to them there. That would be greatly appreciated. I think that's it. Also, while you're on the Inside LA page, check out all different types of other offerings that are going on. Even though people are not meeting in the buildings, tons of stuff still happening. So all of your Dharma mindfulness needs will definitely be supported. So let's end up with a dedication of merit as we listen to the bell. The merits of these acts and other such virtues may we attain a liberation for the benefit of all beings. We bow before those who come before us on the path, and to those who come after us on the path. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for your practice this evening. Hope to see you all next week.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.